Hello.
How about now?
Patrons, watchers of the time stream. Yes, we have sound.
Wow.
Welcome to the official companion show of the Dungeon Run. It's the Dungeon Cooldown, your occasionally show with sound. I am Jeff Kanata, and I am joined by Civ Red Thistle himself, Jared Kajak. Hey, Jared.
Hey, Jeff.
How are you?
Well, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. We're not going to lie. We had to pause the show and call Jessica, and then she told us how to fix things, and then we started the show again. So thank you, Jessica. Mwah, mwah,
thank you, Jessica, for saving us. We don't know how to do anything. Oh, David Jen Pro says, love the 49ers shirt. Going to the big dance, ladies and gentlemen. Going to the dance. How's your team doing, by the way, there, Jared?
I don't want to talk about it.
Anyway, just curious. We got a big cooldown to talk about, which is why it's really awesome that we have sound, because we have a lot of talking to do. We're coming off a really big episode, an episode I had been building to for literally years. It is called The Grave of Nonezzeron. It is episode 105. So if you happen to be watching this and you haven't seen that episode yet, be aware, we are going to spoil it. We're going to talk in detail about it. We're going to answer questions from the audience. Patrons have sent questions on the weekly patron post where we ask for questions for the cooldown. So if you have questions, you can put them in the chat as well, but we're going to get all our patrons' questions out of the way first.
Yes.
How did you feel about this episode, Jared?
I had a lot, and I mean, not just because I actually got to slay a dragon, but I had a lot of fun.
Good.
It was a very, very, very enjoyable episode. I feel like it had a little bit of everything. There was some role playing. There was obviously lots of combat. Like, to me, that episode encapsulates classic D&D, like what I think of and what I want from a D&D episode or
Dungeons
game.
and Dragons.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine that
in D&D.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Maybe there's no need to overthink the game. Maybe you really just make a dungeon and put a dragon in it, and then you're golden. Yeah.
My favorite thing about how it all sort of worked out, which is not how I would have planned it, but I liked the fact that because of how we ended the cliffhanger in episode 104, with you guys failing the stealth check, everybody was anticipating a fight with a dragon.
Yeah.
But the dragon you actually had to fight wasn't the dragon you thought you were going to fight.
Yeah, I thought
that was pretty fun. A fun little twist.
Yeah, it's a great twist.
Yeah, but I mean, not something that I would have planned, but it's just how those things work out. Something that I would have planned. Fun things. So you think you think you're past the dragons, and then the real dragon fight happens, which was kind of neat.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you had fun, because that's always the number one goal, is to have fun.
For me to have fun, no one else.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make Jared have fun. That's an easy task, ladies and gentlemen.
No, it's not. In fact, the more fun that other people have, the less fun I have.
This was
an episode about me having fun and no one else.
I have to ruin everyone else's day in order for Jared to have a good time.
Okay, let's get into some questions, because there's some good ones in here. Dr. Sparks, Jeff, when you came up with the fight, what was your thoughts about the paradox of the killing the dragon in that way? I'm assuming he means the Chrono Dragon being killed by the Godslayer blade, which is also created from the body of the Chrono Dragon.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure you were all going to use the Godslayer blade again. I wasn't sure about it. In fact, I had all kinds of other plans as far as, how that fight might go in my head. I'd thought through a whole number of things. I wasn't sure that you would, part of, there's a lot of people who have been very vocal to me about how unhappy they were with the way the first time you wielded the Godslayer blade went. And you among them, Jared. But a lot of fans, a lot of viewers, not too happy about it. But it really feels like it was essential to establish the fact that it ain't always going to go well using this very powerful weapon, And so it has to become, it's not just the answer to all problems. It has to be weighed with the potential downsides. it has to feel like a risk to use this thing.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that existed before this time. And so I wasn't sure it was going to be used. And the fact that it was used is delicious to me. I love the fact, because it's not something I controlled in any way. You guys decided to do it. And you didn't know what you were doing, insofar as you didn't know that it was created from Nonezzeron's heart.
Yeah, I mean, Civ definitely was not excited about using the Godslayer blade a second time. I really feel like if Ugo hadn't come over and said, you need to do this, I don't think I would have done it, because A, the Dragon Tooth Dagger was working out pretty good. And B, I don't want to take that risk of, on the off chance that Godslayer blade gets turned on one of us.
Yeah.
You know,
right?
Because you want to talk about seeing Civ go down a really long, dark spiral, have the Godslayer blade get plucked out of his hand and plunged into one of the other player characters or other heroes of Bingle. And that'd be bad.
I loved the fact that the first time the Godslayer blade came out, you're like, I'll give up all my vices. I'll be a better person. I promise to brush my teeth before I go to bed.
Yeah.
Like, he's saying everything. And then the second time you're like, you know what? Turn it on if you want. It's up to you. I can't be held responsible for what happens.
Yeah. The pressure was not something I wanted to place on myself. I really wanted it to be up to the watchers, because I kind of feel like that's the coolest aspect of one of the cool aspects of our show, is how much the watchers get to influence the storytelling.
Yeah.
And having an item, I love having an item where they get to decide whether or not it works. And it's not going to necessarily break the game if it doesn't work, because there are always other options.
Right.
So, and it's one of those things where it also kind of keeps it in check to where we can't spam it. Like, we're not going to be pulling out the Godslayer blade every battle and trying to use it on the big bad, because it might not work, or it might, get to the points where the viewers are like, hey, you guys have had it easy for far too long. We're going to checkmate this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to answer the question directly, I think that I love the fact that to kill a time dragon, you have to use a paradox. Like, that's just chef's kiss, right? It's just, and it's not something that I could have forced on the story, but the fact that it all came together like that, just love it.
Vagabundas 69 in chat says, were you ever afraid that the watchers would say no? Yeah, I fully expected them to say no.
I thought they were going to say no this time too.
Yeah, I was like, it didn't work out well the first time. And I think there was a lot of people that were watching, and this is just me speculating, but there was a lot of people that were watching that were like, that makes sense in this moment for that to happen. Like, the storyteller's brain kind of kicks in and goes, yes, I think that works for this part of the story. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And it did. I have to admit, I don't have the stream or chat up while we're playing, so I wasn't even able to watch the voting take place. Jessica was handling that. Yeah. And then when Jessica's face was like, and I was like, oh my God, they said no. But of course, Jessica was role playing as Fahima, who was hoping to not kill the dragon. Right. So that's why she was doing that. But I thought for sure they were going to say no. And then I went back the next day and watched the replay of the stream just to see that moment and see how it went. And there were a lot of people, Fail Waffle chief among them, who were really rallying a no vote, trying to drum up a no vote. So it really felt like it could have gone no. But I think it worked out great. I love that it happened like that. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's different too. Like, that's the thing that I keep coming back to, is that it's not like a home D&D game in the sense to where we're doing a show, obviously, but also, you have this outside audience that gets to participate. And I think that adds a level of chaos, frankly, that makes the storytelling trickier, but when it does work, when it does pan out, it's that much more rewarding and juicy. Yeah. There's a lot of serendipity in this show, which is pretty amazing to witness. Second part to Dr. Sparks is, what was Civ's thoughts about using the Godslayer blade again? I don't think Civ likes it. I don't think Civ likes that sword. I don't think he wants that sword.
I think he wishes that we never ever found it. I mean, he's like 2 steps away from just hucking that thing into the deepest lake he can find. I think the only concern that he has is if he does that, random NPC evil guy number 243 will pop up, in episode 243 with this little hilt, and I'll be like, no. At least having it on my person, I know where it's at. But maybe he'll think, maybe Sid will find a way to destroy it. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, now you know why it was why the Shazengao were moving that treasure cache around and having such secrecy and had such these crazy defenders defending it and all the things that you just saw back in time.
Yeah. That's a good question. Well, I'll ask that later if we have time. Luke Johnson, can we get a look at the map that was ruined by 500 feet of underground tunneling?
I don't think it was underground tunneling.
Yeah, we didn't
magic
ever,
spell.
Yeah, we didn't actually get to they tunneled a little bit. Fahima tunneled a little bit and then did her warp spell that allows her to open a portal that's 500 feet away. That was a very cool map.
Dude, I spent so much time on that map.
I mean,
it's supposed to look like multiple seasons all butted up.
Civ hung around for a bit.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I could share my screen or not. I can maybe I'll post it as a patron reward.
There you go.
That's a good idea, right?
But
it's a mashup of several different maps that I worked on a lot.
Roll 20. See, that's a good question for you, Jeff, as a dungeon master, where you do things like that, where you create these maps that take a bunch of time and you finally get to use it. Now that we have higher level wizard spells, and there's a good possibility that we're going to be able to warp around all over the place. How do you, as a dungeon master, how do you prepare? How do you plan for something like that? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's impossible to be able to do anything, like there's been a number of times in our show, even before you guys were this high level, where, you in particular, but everybody would just run off the edge of the map or do some sort of thing. And you just have to kind of roll with that and understand it's a possibility. And there's no way, I mean, I can't even tell you how many maps we haven't used that I've spent time preparing and setting up and getting ready. So there is an element of that, of like, well, if they do this, then I gotta have a map for that. And so I do, but to a certain extent, like I can't have just 500 more feet in this direction map. It's, you got to just go, okay, well, you're in another place. In fact, I'll tell you, as we were doing the episode, I thought, well, there's no reason why if we get into a fight 500 feet to the east, it can't just look like this in the map again. Like I can just use the map again and be like, okay, we're 500 feet to the east, but now this is a little different over here.
Yeah.
So, you do what you can. And to a certain extent, you just have to roll with the punches on that one.
Every battle we get into 500 feet in all directions, it looks the same.
Exactly.
Where we are currently standing.
It's like Ein and no time zones. Like everything 500 feet away is exactly the same as it is here all the time.
Yeah. Chat, I'm seeing all of your wonderful questions, but we have to do the Patreon questions first. So I will try to scroll back and get to some of them. Jeff, if you see any questions that you really want to hit, let me know.
Yeah.
So that was Luke Johnson. Diana Weeks asks, is the amulet that our heroes have also from the Chrono Dragon's eye? Yes. We
really need to make that clear. If that wasn't clear, it makes me sad. There's only one amulet. That's the amulet. It's the same amulet. It's the Secret Keeper's amulet. That is, you just witnessed the origin of the amulet that we got back in episode 1. That is the amulet. That's how it was created. That's the amulet.
Yeah. And Morgan was shocked, and I guess some people in chat and Discord were shocked as well, that the shape of the amulet being an eye was something that you had planned from the beginning, being the Chrono Dragon's eye.
It was always the Chrono Dragon's eye. I know there's a question later about somebody saying, hey, did you just make the Chrono Dragon up for the time traveling stuff? No, it was always a Chrono Dragon, which is why the time traveling thing started to really come into focus for me when I was, when COVID happened and was like, well, let's do something else. But it was always, in fact, I don't think it's a spoiler to say, look at the original logo of the dungeon run. That's Nonezzeron. So
I thought that was a Shazam Gao thing for a long period of time. The dragon head. I thought for sure that it was like a dragon coin. You know what I mean?
Well, not mutually exclusive, those two ideas.
Yeah. But don't the Shazam Gao kind of hate dragons in a weird way?
More to learn on that front. Learn on that front.
Dun dun dun.
Yes, but the amulet has always been Nonezzeron's eye. In fact, the first time you see Nonezzeron, I told you guys that his eyes look very familiar to you.
Right.
The other thing,
I wasn't paying attention. I was just thinking we're going to die fighting this dragon.
The other thing that you may recall is every time that you touched the Godslayer blade when you discovered it, you felt and heard a heartbeat.
Yeah. Dun dun.
So it was always made from the heart of the Proto Dragon. That was always the idea. So yeah, it was really cool that I mean, the way the time travel stuff happened was never intended, and it was sort of because of COVID, and we needed to do a side adventure, and it turned into the we're still in COVID, here we are, but yeah, I mean, that was an opportunity that presented itself to me. I was like, oh cool, now we have this way to meet Nonezzeron that isn't how I thought we were gonna meet Nonezzeron, but I think makes it way cooler because now you have all this context that you didn't have before. And I also loved the fact that when you all met Nonezzeron, you didn't like him. Like, I love the fact that Ron was like, I want to kill you. I was like, yes, because you are going to at some point. So that was
to be fair, Ugo wanted to kill most things before the Candle Queen.
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair. Yeah.
And so just saying.
I will say there is a part of me, that continues to mourn. I mean, again, I'm grateful that we're continuing to do the show. I'm grateful for our patrons. I'm grateful that we are able to make this show and do it as well as we are as a small team. But I had so many discussions with the map room people at Caffeine about how we were going to visualize the Nonezzeron fight.
Oh yeah.
And I think it could have been truly visually spectacular if we still had that team at our disposal.
You're talking about the 3D maps that we had? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because it was coming into focus much after we had already, not had physical maps, but in the studio.
Right.
But I thought we were going to get there a little faster. I thought the potential of us getting there faster was there. So I talked to the map room digital folks, the 3D folks, about how we were going to visualize that fight. And it was, I mean, I have no doubt they would have made it really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially with being able to see sort of like the vision of the past heroes and the new heroes, and then Nonezzeron being kind of warped in between the two. Yeah.
Yep. It was going to be awesome. And they were going to be able to puppeteer that whole fight as I described it. They would be able to puppeteer that whole, we talked about how like we were going to have that fight. You guys are going to witness that fight happening as if it's a D&D fight. Yeah, it was going to be cool, but oh well.
Yep. Well, when we start the animated series, then you can do all that discussion again.
Love it.
So David Gen Pro has like this massive paragraph on here. I'm going to try to pick some questions out. Is time a flat circle? Nazi, the amulet, and the Godslayer blade. Is time a flat circle? I don't know.
Yes.
I also want to ask Jared about what he felt may have caused Civ's apparent shift from seemingly being on the edge of PTSD alcoholism to being more centered. For example, Civ's touching, comforting of the almost demon James at the end of episode 104. So
beautiful scene, by the way. Beautiful scene.
Thanks. The way I see where Civ is at right now is he's doing his best to keep it all together and to hopefully be the rock or the pillar that everyone else can lean on right now. He's had to lean on them a lot, especially when he was going through that whole series of like David Jen was saying about the PTSD and the alcoholism and what have you. And at this point, you know, in his mind, this is a war, and he didn't want to get involved, and he was starting to have doubts. And then when he eventually said, all right, let's do this, I'm going to sign on the dotted line. I'm going to sign up. I'm going to get back in this. At that point, he goes into warrior mode, which kind of fits, seeing as how he's multi-classed into Rune Knight.
Yeah.
And are there things out there that could happen to us or to Civ that would put a big crack in that veneer and send him spiraling back to the old Civ rack? Of course. But right now, his friends need him more. They need him to be there for what they're going through, especially James, because James is dealing with something that I think he has almost no control over. And I think Civ relates to that in more ways than one. So
I think you see that in real life, that folks that are having a difficult time, if they have a sense of purpose, if they feel like they are needed for someone else, they often are able to, you know, they're often able to act in a way that they wouldn't be able to for themselves. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's a beautiful aspect of Civ that we see that really rings true to me. That feeling of like he can pull himself together for other people, even if he can't do it for himself, you know?
Yeah. And we haven't had time to, like, you know, just sort of sit and stew either. We had some time when we were in Fahima's hometown of Axbright, but I think at that moment he was still trying to piece together what was going on overall, like what our next move should be, which is why the Reed thing was a distraction, but not the big issue. I think the big issue is, what are we, the heroes of Bingle, doing? What are we going to do next? What's the most important thing for us to tackle? And what are our biggest issues as a group and as individuals? So that's kind of where my mindset was when we were in Axbright. And I think that that's starting to coalesce. I hope we'll see. There's so much more there, David Gen Pro.
I want to say real quick, sure, while you were talking, the TTRPG Academy gifted a whole bunch of subs to people. So thank you, TTRPG Academy.
Nice.
Thank you for that. And feel better. Phil Waffle says she's sick. So feel better.
Okay. As far as my training when it comes to counseling, David Gen Pro, because he's asking if Jared has any counseling, I think my experience comes more from my acting and just trying to empathize with other people and their situations. I think most actors, at least the actors that I'm used to being around, have a deeper sense of empathy, because our job as performers, and Jeff, feel free to jump in here if you have thoughts on this, but our job as performers are to relate. Like relate to your character, the situation, what they're going through, you know, what their struggle is, what they love, what they hate, all of that. And that you can't help but do that day in and day out. At least I can't, in your regular life as well. And so you tend to just be a little bit more empathic. Yeah. And sometimes, you know, it's a hard thing to shut off. Like you want to, you want to be that stoic, uncaring individual, so you can get through life and deal with your own stuff. But, you know, once you open that part of yourself, that empathic part of yourself, I'm getting very woo-woo right now, but once you open that up, it's hard to then close those gates, you know?
Yeah.
So
I'm a big proponent of don't close those gates. We're all better if we feel for each other more.
Yeah. Agreed. Good questions. Thank you, David Jen. Marie Listoped, Jared, tell us about your kid and what it's like for you as a father.
How much time do we have?
I was gonna say that's a whole nother subject.
That's a whole other podcast.
I was gonna say,
Jeff and Jared do dad talk.
I was gonna say Jeff's a dad too. It has been easily, and I know this is a little cliche, but it's been easily one of the most rewarding, but also one of the most difficult things I've ever had to do in my entire life. Easily. I mean, I can think back over my life and how, there have been things that have been huge struggles, but also very rewarding. And it's one of those things where, I don't know if you can really prepare for it. Like, you can read books, you can talk to friends that have kids, you can, I don't know, watch series or documentaries or whatever. But until you're there, until you are a dad or a mom, I don't think there's any way to prepare for it. And my son is definitely at that age now where he's challenging everything. No is his favorite word right now.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man.
Yeah,
that phase lasts about 18 years, I'm told. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I'm just waiting for the rewarding part.
Snap. Yeah. I mean, that's really just, Marie, that's like a whole nother show, really.
Yeah.
It's the next cool down we do together, Jeff. We can just do the dad cool down.
Yeah. The lie down is what it would be called.
the lay down and give me some quiet time.
Yeah.
Where's my beer show. It's just us laying down and groaning for an hour straight.
Just wait. I know there's questions, but just give me a second.
Definitely need food too. Some kind of like burger or comfort food.
One of my favorite tweet/memes I saw was somebody wrote like, I didn't understand until I was a dad. I didn't understand that scene in Empire Strikes Back when Yoda dies because Luke is just asking him too many questions. He just chooses to die. I'm out.
It's like, I've been around for a long time. I'm gonna peace out. Use the Force. Good luck.
Yeah.
See you around, kiddo. Yeah, man, that's a whole nother show. Marie, thank you though. Melodies of Old. Hello. Did either Uggo or Civ, well, Uggo's not here, consider not fighting Nonezzeron or running away, leaving the grave area? Yes. Civ always contemplates running away, or what he views as strategy. Like, is it better to fight this thing? Is it better to fight this thing in a different place? Is it better for us to lure this thing out? Is it better for us to hit it before it realizes that we're there? Is it better to try to sneak past this thing? Always thinking of alternatives. I don't even know if Civ really wanted to kill Nonezzeron, but I don't think Jared, let alone Civ, I didn't see another choice. I didn't see another option. I felt like our backs were up against the wall and it was either us or him. And I love the way that Jessica played that, because she made it clear, storytelling wise and character wise, that he was not going to just stop and talk to us and work this out. Like, he felt sincerely threatened. We're in his home. We clearly present a viable threat, let alone the other time stream creating a very real threat. So yes, I definitely considered it, and no, I did not see another option, but that's just me.
Yeah.
Or did either of your characters consider running forward to see if you could go to the timeline where the wardens were? Yeah, I definitely thought about trying to interact with the other wardens. I thought that would have been a cool moment if we could have, even just had a brief interaction. What are your thoughts on that, Jeff, as far as like possible interactions? Like if you were going to turn this into a module, would you even make it a possibility for the old wardens to interact with the new heroes?
I mean, I think that's a cool direction to go. I was trying to make it very clear to you guys that that is not possible, that it literally was, it was as if somebody set up a projector and was projecting an old time onto your world. So it literally wasn't, it wasn't that they were actually there. It wasn't that they were actually interactable. It was literally just a vision of that moment. So I was very much trying to, in the descriptions, try to make it very clear that there was no way for them to see you. And I think if you dig deeper into the reasoning behind that, we kind of talked about this after the show ended on Wednesday night, but the reason that you get to see them is because you have the amulet, right?
Yeah.
They don't have the amulet yet. They literally make it right after the moment that you see them, right? So it's a one-way street. You get to see what they're doing, but they're in the dark as to what's happening. And that's why ORAD says we only have one hope now.
Yeah.
And they in their planning of how they're going to take down this chrono dragon, knew that there was a possibility that the dragon would leap forward in time.
Yeah.
And they were hoping beyond hope or backward in time. They were hoping, and they sort of could research that and find out that didn't happen, right? But they were hoping beyond hope that there was somebody in some subsequent timeline that would at least do enough to send it back from whence it came, right? Or finish it off. So for me, that was the spark that really got me excited about this fight, is the idea that in order to take down something that can leap through time, you have to fight it in multiple times. You have to, and if it's going to be able to leap forward 300 years, the people that fought it here aren't necessarily going to be the same people that get to fight it again. So I love the idea of like this handing of the baton to the players and going, hey, our fate is up to you right now.
Yeah.
We're powerless back here in time. So take it. What happens, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Jim Witted, congrats on another incredible episode of mind-blowing revelations. Jeff, I'm interested in where the idea for the Godslayer blade came from and how much you anticipated it being used in these big encounters.
Well, I can't tell you the answer to the first part of the question yet, because there's more to that story that the team will uncover. But you know, the part of the reason, like I said before, I already kind of mentioned this, but I know everybody got mad at me about how using the Godslayer blade for the first time went wrong. But part of the, and again, I didn't know that was going to happen. I left that up to the dice. That was the dice's call on that one.
I think if Ugo had the sword and he has a much higher strength bonus than I do, I think you would have definitely had a much harder time ripping it out of his hands.
Right. Yeah. So I didn't know who was, in fact, well,
I wasn't even necessarily planning on using it because we had a lot of firepower on our side already. So the idea of pulling out a sword that, you know, could possibly backfire or not work, or it's the sole reason why that demon Lord of Crows creature was there, is a huge risk. So I wasn't even planning on using it until we got into the fightaways, and I realized that, you know, there was a good chance that a lot of people, possibly even other heroes or player characters, were going to die if I didn't do something. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, Morgan got one-shotted practically.
And you know, and in very real sense, Nonezzeron had lots of other stuff up his sleeve. Things could have gone very bad in that fight too. But it was very important to me that there was at least the potential of this, using this thing going horribly wrong. And the fact that that did play out that way, I think ultimately is very important for the characters in our story to understand that this isn't the answer to all their problems, right? If you get into a fight with something, you don't just get to whip out the Godslayer blade and zip, you're done. It really has the potential of being it's the nuclear option, right? It's
Yeah.
it's real bad potentially also, so there has to be some sense of
Risk.
That's the word.
Yeah, totally. Cool. And Jared, what do you think it means to Civ now that the Godslayer Blade move went to plan this time? We kind of already talked about that. I sort of feel like Civ now at this point is like, okay, it worked, but it didn't work the first time. And each time we pull this out, it's going to be another giant flip of the coin as to whether it's absolutely terrible or awesome. So yeah, Civ likes to gamble. 50-50 odds, not the greatest odds. Yeah, those are some bad Vegas odds right there.
Yeah.
Okay. Bradley Potts, Jeff, it feels like a lot of story elements are rapidly coming to a head. Do you have an idea of what level the Heroes of Bingo will be when the story concludes, or is that not really a consideration? That's a great question.
Yeah, it's not really a consideration. I don't have like a target level. For me, it's more about the story beats. Like there's a universe where a lot of the things that the Heroes of Bingo have done, they didn't do, right? They didn't have to go to Olsvach. They didn't have to, there's a whole bunch of things that could have been skipped, or maybe have been skipped.
When I see the module of your campaign, I definitely see us doing that thing that gamers do where they're like, I need to do every single possible little sub quest and side plot. And, oh, if I go over here, I can get this magical item and that'll make fighting this boss battle so much easier. The completionist.
Yeah.
And I also see another version of your module where it's like, this is the path, and all of those little side plots nobody does, and they get through it, and
totally. I mean, let this land on you, ladies and gentlemen. There's a very real possibility, and something that I thought about quite a lot, where the Heroes of Bingo don't ever retrieve the Godslayer Blade from the vault.
Yeah.
Or B, go to Nonezzeron's grave before they even get the sword.
Yeah, we could have very easily gone there. We talked about going there before we went and got the sword. We talked about going to Zhang first.
Exactly. So there's a whole universe where, they do things out of order and different order. So I don't really think about that side of it. I'm much more interested in having satisfying story beats and rewarding you guys for those. And the leveling will happen as it happens. But to me, it's less about like, oh, they're going to be level 20 when they're done or whatever, than it is about like, I want to have a satisfying progression.
I definitely see Fahima getting to about level, I don't know, like 16 or 17 and getting those ridiculously high level spells, and Jeff going, okay, we're going to wrap this up.
Yeah.
I'm done dealing with wish spells. So the next episode is our last.
I'll be honest with you. I mean, until now, the dungeon run, I've never DM'd a campaign with this high level of characters ever.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a challenge because, D&D characters get very powerful very fast. Yeah. And at a certain point, you can teleport 500 feet away anytime you want. So
there's a lot of modules or quests or campaigns or what have you that get up to like level 13, 14, and then that's where they stop. And it's because if you're a game designer, that's when you have to try to plan for every eventuality. And some of these high level spells or high level abilities are just so game breaking. Like I remember when flight used to be very rare in D&D. And now you can pick like 3 or 4 different races and start with the power of flight from level 1,
which ruins so many potential obstacles, right?
Yeah. Or example, you have to be a jerk dungeon master and put everything inside of dungeons, and then all of a sudden flying sucks because you're just bumping your head against the ceiling everywhere you go, which is lame. Yeah.
Or you spend hours, coming up with this cool descent into this underground lair, and you have characters that's like, oh, I'll just fly to the bottom right away, and you go,
yeah. So game balance. And I think the higher level you get, the trickier it gets. The one nice thing I will say you have going for you, Jeff, is that we as players tend to make our character decisions first. In other words, who we are as characters or as actors or as players in this game always is paramount over what's the most powerful thing we could possibly do.
Yeah, or the most efficient.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for that, because there's not a lot of D&D players that are like that, quite frankly. There's a lot of players that are in the game to play the game as effectively as they can.
Right.
Which is, you know, I dare you to find a single action adventure movie where the heroes do the most efficient, effective thing all the time. You can't find it because it's not good storytelling.
Yeah.
It's boring storytelling. You want to see them almost lose and then win. You want to see them do the horrible thing and get into trouble and have the problems and then triumph and learn from it. I mean, that's the human story. That's what we all want in life, is to these stories to be told in that way. So I'm very grateful to have a team of players like you guys who you know, play
we constantly make bad decisions to make your life easier, Jeff.
Yeah, I know. You would never do it on purpose. You would never do it, you know, by accident. It's always on purpose.
Yeah. Okay, that was a good question. Thanks, Bradley Potts. Thomas Bickley. Jeff, was Nonezzeron something you already had as a part of the story before the time travel storyline, or was that something you wove in later as a result of that unanticipated diversion? That's Braba.
We kind of already covered that.
Yeah, we beat that question to death already. Was there anything in chat that you saw, Jeff, that you wanted to go back to and talk about? I can go to the Discord questions as well.
I mean, there's tons of chat questions. Here's one that just that gamer share said, question for Jeff. Did you create the backdrops for each hero of Bingo's hometown, or did each player create theirs? It was a collaborative process each time. All the players came to the table, you know, before we started the show with fully fleshed out character backstories. So it was about sort of weaving those into the world that I was building and figuring out. I'll tell you the way I did it, honestly. Jared, you can comment on this, whatever. Sure. I mean, again, understand that at that time I was thinking we were going to make 10 episodes total. We're on episode 106 this week. But I literally wrote down, as I got everybody's characters and backstories down, I literally wrote all their names down and then wrote one essential piece of information that only their character could bring to the table.
Yeah.
Like in the story that I wanted to tell, I went, okay, why are all 5 of these characters essential to that story? What is the thing that only they do? Like, you know, I mean, I don't want to give examples because I don't know how, whatever, but
Vic's a great example.
Vic's a great example. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I think I've mentioned this before. In the original 10 episode arc, Vic was going to be the big bad. It was going to be revealed that Vic was behind everything. Right. And I changed that up relatively quickly after we knew that the story was going to be bigger, and then kind of came up with the Ashen Mage and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, so it was like, okay, so we have this character that's from Civ's past that's ultimately going to play this role. We have this thing from James that's ultimately going to be this. So I took what they gave to me and then went, how can that be fundamental? You know, why these characters? It's not just like this person happens to be involved in this story. It's this person has to be involved in this story.
Yeah, it's a tie-in.
Yeah. So in that sense, like I kind of built the story and the people and what everybody brought to the table in tandem. And then, I mean, I think the most interesting thing, and you can speak to this more, Jared, because it was a big part of you and I working together, is that when we eventually came to their hometowns, we came to places that they had already, you know, I mean, I named the places and stuff like that, but things were very loose from people's hometowns, right? So when we actually visited them, then, you know, I would have interactions with each individual person to kind of flesh things out. It's like, what do you know?
Yeah.
what do you
we
have in your
emailed each
pocket?
other back and forth quite a bit during that period of time to come up with the full structure of Olsvach.
Yeah.
And it's funny because there were comments back in the day where people were like, wow, I could really get the sense or the feel of like Civ going back and all of that history and all of his relationships with everybody from Olsvach. And I think that's a testament to the work that you and I put in before we even got there, talking about not only the relationships with the vermin, but also Vic and also the cheesemonger and Civ's upbringing in the town and all of the drama that's happening in that town. And I think that's one of the reasons why it felt as immersive as it was, but it also was a reason why we could have spent an entire campaign just in Olsvach, because there was so much there. There was so much going on. There were so many layers to the onion, so to speak. But I felt that way about Turles as well, you know? So I think one of the beautiful things about that strategy that you're talking about, and dungeon masters out there that are listening should definitely steal that, is tying in each of the player characters to your main plot is key, because it gives them a reason to stay invested and motivated. But it also gives them a huge reward if each of their hometowns or where they're from or their history gets brought up at some point in the main story, because then each person gets to really shine, so to speak, or you really get that in-depth backstory on that character.
Yeah.
Whether that player character has thought it out clearly or not, it'll come to a head real quick and you'll figure out real fast what made that player character who they are now. So,
Yeah. I think that's well said. That's that's one of the challenges with like saying, let's make it into a module, is that so much of what the story is because these particular characters were in it. Of course you could still have a Bingle and you could still have a Olsvach, you could still have all those things in a module. It's awesome that Lily Dumblestack comes from Bingle, so that when Bingle is destroyed, it's not just, oh, this nice place got destroyed. It's the hometown of one of our main characters got destroyed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's also just great campaign setting juice. Like if you're going to set your campaign in Forgotten Realms, let's say, the people that are out there, if you're not setting it in Ain, you put it in Forgotten Realms, knowing where each character comes from and why they're an adventurer, you can still use that in your, even if it's a written quest or module, use it. Don't let that, don't leave that on the ground as a dungeon master. That's the spice. That's what's going to make your main meal really pop.
Yeah.
Is those little sprinkles.
And I would also give another compliment to all of our players is, everybody came to the table thinking we were only going to do 10 episodes. And in 10 episodes, it's rarely the case that you'll be able to explore a character's backstory. I mean, we were going to be hitting the ground running and going crazy, but probably because each of you are actors and you invest a lot into the characters that you play and you're used to building out, reasoning behind the choices that you make. All of you came to the table with really interesting, complex, truthful backstories that made sense. And so it was a real gift to me to be able to have all that to mine.
Sure.
And a lot of stuff, there are things too that like lots of stuff in Olsvach where you go, well, this is never going to come into play for our story. Oh, wait, no, we're going to Olsvach. It is going to come into play. It's going to be a big deal. And now we have this material to be able to draw from, 2 years later or whatever it was when we finally got there.
The scarves were something that I thought about from day one with Civ, because I like the idea of having a physical object, whether it's a thistle or a little pet mouse or a scarf or whatever. I feel like that not only gives you the visual of the character, but it also informs a lot of, what makes that person, because it's a character, but it's also a person tick. And you can easily, like little things like if you found a body and the body had a candy bar in its pocket and it's either half eaten or not half eaten, or it's partially melted, or it looks like it's been in there for a long time or whatever. Now all of a sudden it's not just a dead body, it's somebody that had a piece of candy or a chocolate bar or whatever.
A dead Willy Wonka.
Yeah.
No, that's great. I mean, I think the rule set of 5e is particularly good at fostering that, that the character
flaws
creation
and the bonds.
Yeah. And like even the way the player's handbook like suggests things is they're very open-ended things, and I think those are all gifts to your DM. If you're a player, you go, yeah, I killed a man in the street and he had a candy bar in his pocket. Maybe you don't even have any idea what that's about, but it's this gift that you're giving the DM that may come into play later and may not come into play later, but it's this cool thing where it's now the DM is like, oh, okay, well, what's the story about that candy bar and why?
And
why
you're playing a warlock.
Your
patron shows up and offers you a chocolate bar.
Yeah. I mean, all those things are gifts, and
cool. Let me know if you see anything else in chat that you want to talk about.
Sure.
References needed says, how do I time travel? Watch the show. References needed. Speaking of chrono dragons, there's our chrono dragon. References needed. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah. If anybody can time travel, it will be you. References needed.
Willmeister, how did it feel to discover that the heroes of Bingo technically had a hand in creating the amulet and the hilt? I'm guessing that's a question for me.
Yeah.
That's one of those questions that I feel like it would best be answered by James, aka Morgan, because he's the one that had the biggest head explosion. I have so many questions. Oh my God. But then how does that with the and it's a heart and the eye and that's a great question. How did it feel to discover that? I like it. To me, it feels like here's the gift and here's the ribbon. And the nice little ribbon that Jeff wraps up for us on this gift is the amulet and the hilt being tied into the chrono dragon and being tied back into the beginning of the show. That's the reward. That's the aha moment. And I don't think very many people guessed it, which is kind of cool.
I know. I constantly felt like it was so obvious. I'm sure you've had that experience before where you have a secret and you just feel like everybody can see through it immediately and nobody actually does, because the amulet has a giant dragon's eye on it, and I felt like the first time that I said, and you guys saw Nonezzeron, you recognize his eyes. I'm like, I'm totally giving it away. But of course nobody else has the context that you have. So they're not thinking along those lines, but
it's the fine line when you're a DM of giving them enough information so that they can at least move on and go to the next plot point, but not giving them so much to where when they finally get to the big bad or whatever, they're like, oh yeah, we knew it was you all along.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I've always been of the camp that figuring it out is actually a compliment. Like it means that you had enough breadcrumbs there that all made sense that, so I'm not opposed to folks figuring it out. I mean, Aegis 13 has been ahead of me on a number of things he posts in the no cast zone sometimes. And I'm like, Aegis 13. But I think he predicted that Choron's son was Yan Mo, I think. Way ahead of time, and I was like, damn it. But anyway, but I think that's a good thing. It means everything fits, and if you if you look at it hard enough,
better than plot holes, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I could talk about that for a long time. There's a lot of jokes in Discord. Did you see anything in chat that you wanted to talk about?
A lot of people
Vagabunda is caught up. welcome, Vagabonda. If you're out there, thanks for getting caught up. We know there's a lot there.
Here's a great question, I think,
please.
for you, for both of us, but
okay.
I would love to hear what you think about it. Giblet, I believe it is asking, any advice on ways to make a one-shot have as much depth?
Oof. I'm really starting to just dislike one-shots.
Me too.
Not as like as a dungeon master, because they're really difficult, but as a player as well. I feel like it's a different game when you know it's just a one shot. And even if you can just cut it into a two shot, it opens up so much more possibility and depth and plot twists and better storytelling and better character interaction. If you're going to do a one shot, it has to be done in one night. And let's say you can set aside 4 hours, or maybe even you're going to go all day and do like some kind of crazy 8-hour game with breaks or whatever. My biggest recommendation by far is you have to have a session 0. The session 0 can take place over email, over phone calls, whatever you need to do to make it happen. But the worst thing you can do for a one shot is jump into that one shot and the characters don't know each other, or the players haven't introduced their characters to each other yet. They don't have any reason to be adventuring together. The dungeon master then has it all on their shoulders to have to create some kind of perfunctory reason to place you all in the same place and work together. And even if they just say, all right, you all know each other, you don't actually know each other. And so you miss out on all of those juicy interactions. That session 0 is so key to getting something started on the right foot. And if you can get a one shot started on the right foot, it's going to make everything soar. It'll be 100 guaranteed 100 times better. Just doing a little bit of prep work as a dungeon master, but also as the players.
I think that's great advice. I have come to the same conclusion that the thing that I love about Dungeons and Dragons is the serialized storytelling of it.
Yeah, episodic for sure.
That has become the thing I love. I mean, I think the mechanics of the game are very pleasurable and fun. And it's fun to just sort of get in and do fun stuff for a day. But the reason that I play this game is for the serialized nature of it, the fact that you can evolve and that to me is the fun, is the juice. And a one shot is such a different beast, completely different beast. It is.
Jim Whitted in chat said the Highmore 6 was a perfect one shot, in my opinion. Jim Whitted, you're not wrong. Todd Stashwick says that he runs almost exclusively one shots.
Yeah.
And he would be a great person to reach out to if you don't already follow him on Twitter or Instagram or whatever. He's constantly running one shots, and he's very, very good at it.
Having played as a player in his one shots at his house, I will tell you, I think one of the genius things that he does is he will write a one shot and then play it with like a dozen different groups.
Yeah.
And I think that really tells you a lot as a DM, that informs how you present a one shot so much. When you see how different groups react to it, you will refine and hone the effectiveness of that experience so much by playing it with a different groups of people. It's not a luxury everybody has, but it's certainly nice if you're able to do it.
Yeah. And I think that's why a lot of people will also buy one shots that have been tested.
Yep.
Because then that saves them that time. Yeah, for sure. But don't be afraid to do that, because what I'll frequently do if I don't have enough time to like plan a big game or like a campaign or whatever, is I'll buy one of those little modules or one shots or two shots or whatever, and I'll tweak it. I'll just make it my own. I'll add stuff. I'll take stuff out that I don't like. I'll, change it. And that can be just as rewarding as creating something from scratch.
100%. I mean, that's what I did with the quest in question. I took a module that I found online and, rewrote large chunks of it. But it's nice to have the structure already there, and you go, okay, this is how much somebody who's played this a bunch of times knows can be done in a single session. And so let's like hang our adventure on this loose structure. Yeah, it's a great way to do it, I think.
Yeah, I think that's all the Discord questions. So if we have a few minutes left since we got started late, if there's any other burning questions that you want for us, go ahead and put it in chat, and we'll answer them as they come. Jeff, is there anything that you're looking forward to in this next couple episodes? Are you excited?
Yeah, but I can't tell you. I'd love to hear what you think though of that same question.
Even though strategically it's something that Civ would never want to do, I, as the player, really want to go to Zhang. I really want to see the Shazengao and see what makes them tick, and interact with them. Civ, I don't think wants to do that because of the dangers of being in a foreign land that doesn't like the people that we are.
Yeah.
But maybe Lily can, cast her seeming spell, and we can at least kind of poke our head in there and see what's going on. I don't know. I love now that we've kind of opened the map and we've gone to several different places. I love the idea of us hopefully snaking our way through the majority of the locations that were on the original map. And I know you were talking about creating a more detailed map that's got some of the smaller towns and villages and what have you on it. But I would love to be able to, go all the way up into Shazengao territory and go left over into like Pash and
for
the savagery and
raiders potentially.
I would love to see more of the world that you have planned for us, and interact with those people. So that's something I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Things are getting very, I think, things are more dangerous in a different way for the team, which is kind of cool. And I think you guys are armed with much more information than you've ever had before. And so yeah, lots of cool thing. Gord the Rogue says, not a question, but go Niners. Thank you, Gord. Dan71 says, Jeff, what about Onevrius the King? Onevrius the King.
That was a big
drop of information you did about that.
He will not fight
what indeed, Danip? What indeed? And Vagabundus69 says, why was Nonezzeron immediately angry at the heroes of Bingle? Well, I think from Nonezzeron's perspective, it was being ambushed. And it seemed to Nonezzeron that
trap.
Nobody comes into a Chrono Dragon's lair unannounced, and he has a bunch of people came in and attacked him, and then when he jumped forward, there were other people there ready to attack him too, or ready, in his place. And so he was certain that was a coordinated attack. And
that's why, that's why I feel like it was so key that some of the player characters attempted to talk to him and establish that. Not only from a storytelling point of view, but also from a character progression point of view. It just turns into, let's just kill everything that comes our way pretty quickly if we don't ever try to at least talk to, especially a Chrono Dragon that could possibly be a really powerful ally if we could get them to, trust us. But I agree with you. I think it was one of those moments where he time warped and was immediately assuming the worst, which is that we were the threat in that time zone, and somehow that had been coordinated. And it had the experience of, which is really cool. This is I think a cool byproduct of the time travel storyline. It had the experience of already having dealt with you and having the upper hand, and you go, oh, they're here to exact their revenge on me. Literally, Ugo said, I want to kill you, and here they are back, ready to exact their revenge, having already been attacked in another time. I think it would be a hard thing to convince this dragon to not defend itself or not, attack. I think this could be our last question. Hadrian X, are the heroes of the Ariad Age based on a previous party of characters from when you played with Alex, or are they original Jeff creations? That's a great question.
There was a moment when I was going to name one of them after Alex's player character, but it did not happen. No, they are just original creations that I made up.
What was Alex's player character's name?
Well, that's just part of the reason that I didn't do it.
Yeah.
It's because his character's name is Dr. Sleek. It doesn't really fit into I'm too well.
Yeah. I could see Alex naming his character that. Yeah. Okay. Wow. That time flew by quickly. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much, watchers of the time stream, for joining us. This has been the Dungeon Cooldown, where we talk about previous episodes, lore, being dads, Dungeons and Dragons in general. Pretty much anything we feel like talking about, mainly the dungeon run. Yeah. But make sure you tune in this Wednesday for episode, what is it? Episode 106.
106. Wow. Yeah. And the only reason this show is possible, if you happen to be watching this and you're not a patron, it's because we have patrons. So consider being one. You'd get early access to the show and a whole bunch of other potential perks. You can check all of those out at patreon.com/thedungeonrun. Please support the show. Make sure we get to keep making it.
Yeah. We would love to make another 106 episodes.
Yes.
All right. Well, this has been Jared and Jeff. Thank you so much for joining us. Jeff, do you want to do your signature sign off?
Always happy to do that. We'll see you next time. Until then, humankind, be both.
Mwah.